I would like to take from my area of expertise, I would like to take our attention to global levels and to the health implications, to the economic burden which we create because of these abuse and violence which we face. So it is of a high importance that we should be aware and informed about the incidences and implications of child abuse. So it is not that the child itself only faces the problem, it is the generations which get affected. And in a latest report, it is mentioned that one child abuse is reported every 10 seconds. And only one out of six is getting reported. So you know the numbers. I mean, they are really high numbers. And when we say child abuse, it is majorly classified into four areas: physical, sexual, emotional, and neglect. Each type has its own magnitude on child psychology and physiology. And it may be a single incidence or several incidents over a period of time. But even a single incidence can be very damaging for child and can actually have severe consequences on his physical, psychological, and mental health. So UN has recently, they have reported that there are around 1 billion children globally who experience this abuse every year. And one child dies out of this violence every 5 minutes. And these numbers are big. So that brings our attention to the cause. Okay, what is happening here? And as we discussed, that it is not only the child who gets affected. Most likely, in most of the cases, this person who has experienced abuse becomes the perpetuator. He actually becomes it passes on the pattern of violence to its peers and future generations as well. So we get affected at multiple levels, and the global cost, which we know is 7 trillion USD per year. That's the global cost we have of child abuse right now. And we should see always a longitudinal study in such cases where a long-term effect of abuse should be studied. And in one such study, it was noticed that 80% of 20 years old were reported to have child abuse for having at least one psychological disorder. And for the coping mechanism, they go for alcohol, smoking, drugs, and that leads to, again, associated diseases, prolonged psychological distress, risky behavior, social withdrawal, impaired cognitive development. Then they have interpersonal relationship difficulties. They are into a lot of problems. And there has been growing evidence that the child who undergoes abuse, his brain development changes actually, and telomeres are shortened. Telomeres are the a string-like shoestring kind of a structure on the top of DNA, which determines the age. So when telomere shortens, we know that the age of individual shortens. And it has been seen that among the same age groups, at least a decade is lost in this process. If the abuse is longer, the decade is also lost in the process. And also very, very dangerous is epigenetic neurobiological changes which comes up. What is epigenetic? It's evolution. It is environmentally developed genetic changes in our system. So what happens is a violent parent actually gives birth to a violent child through a lot of inheritance mechanisms and epigenetic changes which are predisposing the violent behavior. So this is very important for all of us to understand how it is affecting generations after generations. And I was very intrigued while reading one of the researches done by Debris et al. In 2017. They wanted to understand who are the perpetrators, who are those who are violent against these children. And they did a age-specific and sex-specific study. And what they found was the common perpetrators of physical and emotional abuse between both girls and boys are household members. These are more than 50% prevalence is found in household members, followed by student peers. So we know the problem is near our proximity. Our own surrounding is not very safe. So that is very important for all of us to know. I know we have covered those aspects where we should have those mandates of allowing the child to express itself. We have also discussed in previous sessions that how the child who's undergoing stress should actually speak out and tell about it. But not all the time this happens. I mean, sometimes the emotional abuse is so subtle that child feels so bad about himself that he does not even know where to go and whom to tell about it. So that is where it is increasing, that the magnitude is increasing over the period of time. And in one of the studies conducted in prisons, 9 out of 10 prisoners were actually had at least one kind of abuse in their surroundings, and mostly it was the family members were abusers in their case. So when they get abused at home, they actually take this outside, and they actually become violent in their behaviors as well. And one more thing which has become very challenging right now is the COVID situation. Because of COVID, there are so many restrictions. There people are put in their house, and the child who is going through this issue is not able to reach out to authorities. And the person who is abusing also knows that you are bound in a situation. You cannot go anywhere. You cannot complain to anybody. So situation definitely is increasing and becoming more and more severe. And that is where the work which you guys are doing is incredible, because this is the time we have to be very, very vigilant around our surroundings as well. And during in my studies also, I have recognized that there are many people, when I do my mental health work, I see that there are many people who are undergoing broken relationships, who have trust issues, who have issues at work, they are getting into um, addictive behaviors. Almost all the root cause is actually their childhood. Something has happened which made them so fragile that they can't trust anymore. They have so much of stress in their body that this is manifesting into diseases now. So what we have to do is we have to actually bring this to light. Not only children, we have to also look for the adults who are inflicting this kind of behavior outside. If you find somebody around you who is having a pattern, who is having a difficulty in coping up with relationships, or having repeated issues, that is the key. That is where you have to bring that person to actually talk to that person, understand what is troubling. And when you go deeper in the conversation, you will understand that something has happened in the childhood. Many a times the person does not even know it. You know what happens is you become so traumatized that you disconnect. So your emotional body actually disconnects with, because it cannot cope up with all that is happening around. So you disconnect, you become numb. You don't even feel what is happening to you at that point of time. And later also, it might be several times this child has abused, and it will become numb to things. And what will happen in the long term is this numbness will lead to emotional inavailability. This numbness will lead to a lot of health issues where the person does not know why this autoimmune disorder is happening to them. They don't know why they are getting again and again so many allergies, so many repeated problems, because there is something deep rooted. And only subconscious, when we tap into subconscious mind, that is when we are able to bring that to awareness. And the moment it comes to awareness, the conscious mind, it actually starts to work on itself. I mean, you be slowly understand, okay, so I had this, that is why I'm behaving like this. Okay, so those are also very important according to me at this point of time, especially during the COVID times when we are going through. And we also know that globally as well, because the numbers are very high. So SDG, as we know, Sustainable Developmental Goals developed by UN. So 2030 agenda is to actually end all forms of violence against children, so that every child lives a fear-free life where there is no neglect, no abuse, no exploitation. It's a historic opportunity to place the protection of children at the heart of nation. But it takes a lot of effort from all of us. I mean, so many institutes, organizations, groups are working together. If they align themselves and come in alignment with SDGs, or in alignment with each other as well, then there will be a long lasting effect which can be seen. So we have to have a 360-degree approach. When you said about earlier that we are trying to bridge AI and human intelligence, it is very important. Actually, it will help. Actually, if we actually bridge these two, it will really help, because we need to understand the patterns as well. We have to identify before this person becomes violent, before this person damages things around himself. We have to actually understand. So for the children, we know that we should have a talking terms with them. We should tell them what is safe, what is unsafe, what is inappropriate behavior, Sometimes role playing also helps, where you can actually the mother becomes other person and tries to touch inappropriately, and child should know that this is not how you should touch me, kind of. You should also encourage open communication with your children, ensure that they are safe in their house, and you should always have a very good relationship with their teachers, babysitters, friends, families, so that you know if something is going wrong, you know that this person is maybe potentially one of the very surprising incidents came to me 2 years ago, where a person was very good with children. He was actually good with children. He was good with adults. He was the person to go, happy person to go. It only appeared to us very late that he was a pedophile and he was actually torturing kids. So this is how we will not come to know who is doing it. So we have to be very vigilant as a society. We have to be vigilant. We have to have some methods. We will really look forward to McMarvin and other organizations to come together and provide us some protocols for everyday life, where we can actually quickly identify if an adult or a child has some kind of problem, so that we can raise the alarm, we can do something about it, instead of just sitting and just keeping it quiet and not talking about it is not going to help anybody. So this is the time. I'm really glad we're having this conversation, and I will definitely look forward to hear from you about the progress which you have done, which will give us some insights, and I will be very happy in the long run as well to participate in these research studies and put my learnings behind it, so that we can develop a good protocol for all of us globally. Thank you so much.
It's my privilege to participate in this webinar as a speaker, to present my study and research on the serious subject, child abuse. While I thank McMarvin for inviting me, I would like to clarify that I have not done any research professionally, but being a journalist, I would like to present my views and some studies on research papers I have gone through regarding this subject. Being a journalist, I would like to present my views. My study on the subject with reference to some research. In fact, child abuse, a crime that has been widely known, felt, experienced, and conveniently being neglected by all of us for ages. This is also a crime being allowed, and one of the serious issues that have been mostly confined to academic researches and seminars only. Unfortunately, except a few private NGOs like McMarvin, no one, including governments, are taking up child abuse seriously. Yes, this subject has a potential to draw a section of audience only in cities to make commercial box office films. Exploitation of children. This theme has become a box office formula. Many films have been made with a view to create awareness towards child abuse. No government pay little attention, as the subject does not fit electoral prospects, unlike other political issues like reservations. Before I make a presentation on this serious issue, I would like to make lighter vein references. Everybody is familiar with our great epic Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, there is a character Sekuni, so whom I consider is the father of child abuse. Because
agree. Yeah.
He is the one who spoiled the minds of Kauravas, like Duryodhana, Dusasana, and other brothers, and instigated them against Pandavas. As a result, we had a great battle in our history. The history witnessed a great battle between Kauravas and Mahabharata war. So this instinct of spoiling children mind, depriving them of due and constitutional rights of getting nutritious food, education, health, and others has been continuing over decades. Instinct of abusing children physically, sexually, physically, psychologically has been allowing with no reports of such incidents and suppressing facts by the society. This is the state of present situation as far as child abuse is concerned. I would like to say that child abuse can be seen in various forms, like child marriages, child bringing children into the profession of begging, and this depriving them of their due rights, harassing them, depriving them of love, compassion that is generally come from their children, parents. This is the problem. Child abuse. These are the problems revolving around child abuse. I would like to start my study with general state of child abuse and conditions. If you India is the largest population in the world. That is almost 19% of the world child population. However, it is estimated that the working children in India are 44 million. 92 million children exist below poverty line and are malnourished. 2.1 million children die annually before reaching their 5th birthday, and one child dies every 3 seconds. There is hardly any day when a child is not raped, kidnapped, or abandoned. Children also face suicide, infanticide, violence, child marriage, buying and selling, illiteracy, abuse, malnutrition, bondage, and death, etc. Children are victims of many crimes. However, the crimes reported most are rape, kidnapping, abduction, buying, selling, abatement of suicide, exposure, abandonment, infanticide, poeticide, and child marriages. Children also become victims of neglect, abuse, and child bondage or slavery. Many children also come into conflict with law, while many others spend their childhood begging either due to poverty or underfed. The government of India passed the Children Act 1960 to introduce uniformity and to establish separate child welfare boards to handle issues relating to neglected children. In 74, the government adopted a national policy for children. The Indian legislature has enacted several legislations to improve and protect lives of children. The Juvenile Justice Act 2000 and its amendment in 2006 and Right to Education Act 2009 are significant in this regard. There are certain crimes against children which are punishable under special and local laws, such as Immoral Traffic Prevention Act, Child Marriage Act, and Child Labor Act. The Child Labor Act banned child labor in hotels, restaurants, and as a domestic servants. But most of the acts are not effectively implementing what the recent surveys found. And as far as this situation is concerned, if we look at how governments and society response to the situation, 79 was declared as the International Year of the Child. In 89, the UN General Assembly unanimously approved the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which entered into force the following year. In 90, the World Summit for Children was held in New York. The leaders signed the World Declaration on the Survival, Protection and Development of Children, as well as a plan of action for implementing the declaration, setting goals to be achieved by the year 2000. In 1999, the Convention concerning the prohibition and immediate action for the elimination of the worst forms of child labor was adopted. In 2000, the UN Millennium Development Goals incorporate specific targets related to children, including reducing sale of children, child prostitution, and child pornography. In 2002, for the first time, so specifics came to be defined as human rights, with particular attention to the rights of special protection and care afforded to the young. The objective was to ensure every child the right to survival, develop to the fullest protection from harmful influences, abuse, and exploitation, and participate fully in family, cultural, and social life. The four core principles of the UNCRC Convention are non-discrimination, devotion to the best interests of the child, the right to life, survival and development, and respect for the views of the child. By agreeing to undertaking the obligations of the convention, national governments have committed themselves to protecting and ensuring children's rights, and they have agreed to hold themselves accountable for this commitment before the international community. They are obliged to develop and undertake all actions and make policies in the light of the best interests of the children. So, condition of children in the world, if we look at, despite the near universal ratification of the UNCRC and the addition of 2 optional protocols, child protection is weak in much of the world. While government appear to agree while the principles that children should not be abused, trafficked, exploited, or exposed to hazardous labor, their commitment to creating and sustaining a protective environment for children is less clear. The rights of over 1 billion children, more than half the children in developing countries, are violated because severely underserved of at least one of the basic goods or services that would allow them to survive, develop and thrive of social welfare and human rights. This is the situation of the child. In the developing world, more than 1 in 3 children does not have adequate shelter. 1 in the 5 children does not have access to safe water, and 1 in 7 has no access whatever to essential health services. Over 16% of children under 5 lack adequate nutrition, and 13% of all children have never been to school. There are 2.3 billion children in this world, of which 1 billion live in poverty, that is, without adequate shelter, safe water, and health facilities. About 12 million children are out of education worldwide, and the majority of them are girls. 10.6 million children die before they reach the age of 5. 1.4 million die each year from lack of safe drinking water and adequate sanitation. 2.2 million children die each year because they are not immunized, and 1.3 million children are orphaned due to HIV, AIDS. This is the state of the children who have been subjecting to this painful abuse. So when it comes to just, I would like to mention one thing. I don't think it is out of context, the subject. Uh, Being a Telugu man, I would like to refer to reformists who fought against the child abuse. One Kandukuri Veeraselingam Pantulu from Rajahmundry, Andhra Pradesh. He was a reformer. He was a writer. He was one among the freedom fighters who fought against the child marriages. Child marriages. He run a movement against the child movement, and at the time when superstitions are on rise, he he was boycotted by upper caste, he dared to perform child marriages, and he encouraged child marriages, and he also encouraged women education. So another person, Gurujar Apparao, who wrote a play, Kanyaswarkam, which completed 100 years and 1,000 performance. In that play, his main theme is selling girls. Those days, when number of women was less than male population, uh, society, especially in upper caste, people used to sell the girls even immediately after they attaining at the age of 8 to perform marriage. There was a saying in our Shastras, Astavarsha Bhavet Kanya, like that. When she attains the age of 8, she is qualified to get married. Uh, that was a period. It's a bad period for girls, female child. He fought against that superstition and that social evil, and he wrote that play. In course of time, those two evils have been banned. Now the regulation has come. So many acts have come prohibiting the child marriages. Still, child marriages are child marriages are being performed in nook and corner in villages, especially in North India. You can see child marriage, social. This is a dreadful social evil. Uh, I would like to refer two cases before Child Marriage Act came into force. It is important to note the two cases that came before the courts for hearing in the history of child marriage. One was the case of Rukmabai and another was of Pulmoni. Everybody knows Rukmabai case. Rukmabai case received attention because at the time when child marriages were common and supported by law, religion, culture, and society, a woman who was given in marriage when she was a child had refused to accept the marriage, and a husband whom she did not like. This was the first case of its kind. Rukmibai's defiance was disturbing, as it not only threatened the sanctity of child marriage, but also because it posed a risk to male domination. Since she had rejected the idea of women's inferiority, questioning what was assumed to be natural, she offered a subversive model of assertion by women of their desire as individuals in a society dominated by the family, community, and men. Next step, when we take Pulomani's case, The second case was a tragic, galvanized public support for the age of consent bill, and in many ways silenced the opposition. Pulomani, a girl aged 11 years and 3 months, had died because of hemorrhage from a rupture of the vagina caused by her husband, who had forcible sexual intercourse with her. He was charged with the offense of murder, but the court exonerated him of the charge of murder as the girl was about 10 years. The event added enormous weight and urgency to Mulberry campaign for raising the age of consent from 10 to 12. The reformers began to collect and publish accounts of similar incidents from all over the country. Systematically, 44 women doctors brought out long lists of cases where child wives had been maimed or killed because of rape. From the possible effects of child marriage on the health of future generations, the debate shifted to the life and safety of Hindu wives. Pulomoni's case highlighted the then existing inadequacies of law and ultimately led to an amendment in the law of rape. The age of consent in section 375 of IPS, which initially was 10 years in 1860, was raised to 12 years in 1891. It was subsequently raised to 13 years in 1925 and later on to 15 years in 1949 for legal consummation of marriage. After 1949, the age of consent for sexual intercourse within marriage with or without consent has not been raised. Further, through the age of marriage for a girl has been raised by CMRA to 18 years in 1978. Then Sarada Bill came. Many social reformists started campaigning for raising the age at marriage after Pulomani's case. In February 1927, Roy Sahib Harbilas Sharda introduced a bill to restrain the solemnization of child marriages. The bill was popularly known as the Sarada Bill. It was applicable only to Hindus, and other religious communities were not within the purview of the bill. The bill declared child marriages invalid. It was circulated throughout the nation to gauge public opinion. A large number of people opposed the provision of the bill that declared child marriages to be invalid. The bill was then referred to the Select Committee. The Select Committee submitted its report in 1928 and made it applicable to all, irrespective of their religion, and not only Hindu. It recommended that the validity of minors' marriage be kept out of the scope of the lay down the penalties for such marriage. After prolonged debate on this report, Sarada Bill was finally given the shape of legislation in 1929. It was entitled the Child Marriage Restraint Act. Child Marriage Restraint Act 29. Human rights are the rights of individual in society. To call them human implies that all human beings have them equally and an equal measure by virtue of their inherent human dignity, regardless of sex, race, age, social class, economic position, religion, culture, or other parameters implied in one's human dignity. Human rights are inalienable, imperceptible. Human rights are rights, not just aspirations, and are not dependent on privileges. As rights, they imply that they are claims as right of entitlements. Thus, they are instruments through which particularly powerless individuals and groups can claim human dignity. Child marriages, what child marriage used to take away from child, take away their autonomy in respect of the choice of life partner and the right to decide the timing of the marriage, may expose them to violence and abuse, which may result in emotional and psychological problems, and sometimes even in desertion and divorce create problems for their reproductive health in terms of maternal mortality and morbidity. Does not give them the opportunity to decide freely and responsibly the number and spacing of their children. Reaffirms stereotypes of women in childbearing roles. Take away their right to education, which in turn denies them the opportunity to become economically independent. Undermines their self-confidence, hampers their decision-making power, affects their overall being, and hinders their ability to participate to the fullest extent in the life activities. So, still, the child marriages have been taking place in various villages. Their local panchayats are preventing police people entering into villages and questioning the child marriages. So, there should be a concerted effort to prevent these child marriages through a stringent laws and implementation of land of the laws regarding the child marriage. Still, people are not aware of these acts, and they are not aware of even the NGOs which have been trying to protect the children from abuse. So, I would like to also say major developments have taken place in India regarding this child marriage. In the context of child marriage since 2005, one such major change in the new legislation on child marriage, that is the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006. While this is thing, there are also juvenile law which punishes the culprits of child abuse. The Juvenile Justice Bill 2004, the bill replaces the Juvenile Justice Act 2000. It addresses children in conflict with the law and children need of care and protection. The bill prevents juvenile between the ages of 16 to 18 years. There are differing views on whether juveniles should be tried as adults. Some argue that the current law does not act as a deterrent for juveniles committing heinous crime. Another view is that the reformative approach will reduce likelihood of repeating offences. The provision of trying juvenile committing a serious or heinous offences as an adult based on date of apprehension would violate the Article 14. The provision also counters the spirit of Article 21 by according a highly penalty for the same offence. If the person is apprehended after 21 years of age. The UN Convention on the Rights of Child requires all signatory countries to treat every child under the age of 18 years as equal. The provision of trying juvenile as an adult contravenes and the convention. Some penalties provided in the bill are not in proportion to the gravity of the offence. For example, the penalty for selling a child is lower than that of offering intoxicating or psychotropic substances to a child. The standing committee examining the bill observed that bill was based on misleading data regarding juvenile crimes and violated certain provisions of the Constitution. While I am presenting this study, I would like to say there are new areas which are still not touched, exposing child abuse. Recent social development, technological revolution, mobile revolution. So these developments also have contributed to some extent to increase the child abuse. Encouraging children responsibly in using mobile, internet without any checks and parenting, parents' irresponsibility, parents' immaturity also are leading to this child abuse. There have been many films are coming, crime, depicting the crime in which we see child abuse incidents predominantly depicted. So illicit relations of either sex, either partner, family, also leading to child abuse, and sometimes they are children lives also are at risk. There are many, there have been many incidents in the last 10 to 15 years in which parents eliminated their own children in order to pursue their sexual pleasure or illegal affairs. So these are all compounded these problems child abuse. So considering all these modern developments and new age evolution, technology, or socially or otherwise, there has to be a uh, there has to be a comprehensive study uh, tandem with other government to report, to identify, to prevent the social child abuse. So unless the problem is identified, the root cause is found, we cannot eliminate this permanently. So there has to be, we have to go long way in solving the child abuse problem. It requires a lot of social responsibility, reforms, maturity, bringing maturity among parents. There should be parents who schools for parenting. Also, there is a need encourage schools for parenting where part of bringing up children should will be taught. Uh, so these are the factors. These are the points we came across in my study. So this conclude this these remarks. I conclude my and I once again thank our